Laura, welcome to Podcastina.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Thanks for being here. Let's just jump right in, get our feet wet. Give me your working definition of thought energy.
Oh, I love this term. I've never really seen it out in the world, but it's something that I have been aligned with since childhood. I just didn't know exactly what it meant. But I believe thought energy is the mechanism for us to reach our highest potential. Because what it does is it brings an awareness to how we are thinking around the thought process, which is so subconscious to unconscious behavior from us. So when we start to think, am I negative, positive, or neutral in the way I'm thinking, it now begins to affect the way I behave, the way I interact, the patterns that are created. So for me, thought energy is the starting point of really creating and designing an empowered life.
And so, how is it that any of this, for the skeptics out there, is scientific?
Yes, how we think can be measured by, again, behaviors. So if someone is having a challenge and they go into a therapist, a counselor, a coach, and we just kind of banter back and forth, most of us pretty much leave with the same patterns intact. But when we look at how energy is structured into the thinking process, now science can measure if there is true data and analytics to back up and confirm change. So when one person begins to become aware of how am I thinking and actually places thought into the process, now we can begin to really shift what we call subconscious contracts, meaning the way we think, the way we feel, what we believe in, how we react and respond out into the world. So the science gives it a bit of a lift, knowing that it isn't just, I think positive, therefore I become a positive person. This is true application of really honing in on awareness. Why am I thinking the way I do? And what is that creating in my life? This is really what helps us shift and change and create lasting effect rather than just temporary mindset shifts. This really creates new behaviors, kind of like redesigning the internal architecture of who we think we are.
How is it different, you mentioned, than just regular mindset stuff? Because I think that's what most people have heard of. And the interpretation, at least for me, has always been okay, your thoughts control your energy, control your beliefs, control the outcome. I'm a big, big manifesting girly. I've talked about it ad nauseum on this show. And so I just would love to know if there's a way for it to be more of like a operating subconscious baseline of kind of positivity and empowerment, as you call it. How do we change it from just being mindset, catching a single thought, to a more perpetual state of positivity?
I love that question, the way you positioned it. Again, if we want temporary thoughts, we will experience temporary change. So mindset, there is a science to having a mindset, like there's an artistry to creating a positive mindset. The science can measure it when, say, I'll use an example of Dr. Joe Dispenza. He has a team of scientists that can actually measure through equipment that the average, coach or writer doesn't have, but they can measure when someone takes a thought, chooses to create a positive result from it, and desires it to be long lasting. There is something that changes in the neuroplasticity within the brain. It's almost as if you're taking a wiring system that's been, let's say, shortened by the pattern, the belief, And now it's splintering off and it's starting to create what we call a new neuronal pathway, new energy, new thought, not just to think we're actually creating change, but to experience the change itself. So for the everyday person, no, we're not walking around with some kind of mechanism on our head that's measuring the science behind our thinking and our shift in perspective and perception. But we know this as coaches or writers or people that collect, data, that when someone believes through an actual experience that I am in the power seat of how I think, therefore how I experience my life, they start to get this momentum of really truly experiencing happiness and positivity, and therefore they don't want to retreat back into what used to be the old way of being. So for those listening that maybe don't want to think about quantum or science and all of that, just think about how easy it is for you to believe something that isn't working for you, and put that energy into believing the opposite, that when you shift your thoughts, you choose neutral to positive energy within that thought process, you will begin to create an empowered life. You will feel it, sense it, become it, experience it. And then the natural kind of alchemy that starts to merge from that, you don't want to go back. And so I think if that's probably the best way I can explain to it without getting too technical and too sciency. So yes, mindset, we all understand what that is. We see it. It's all around our world. But the science behind it is actually experiencing the results, not just one time, one thought, one session, but learning through skills and tools and a way of thinking that actually changes the patterns, the behaviors, and the outcomes. And that can be measured scientifically.
I'd like to get really granular with this because I talk about it all the time. You talk about it all the time. But for someone who is like, what the hell are they talking about? What kind of thought? Like, let's start with an example of a thought that might be impacting someone in a way that they don't even know. And what would it look like to shift that and then have it lead to a different outcome?
So I love this question. Of course, I didn't know what you were going to ask, but I was just working with a client, an older client, and she has been a very specific way her whole life in her marriage, and it's beginning to falter. And she came to me, quite broken and fractured. It's over 30 years, raised children, etc. And she almost refused to take accountability for what she may be presenting into the relationship. One question I asked her: do you feel that you have the potential, the ability to shift something so that the dynamics itself within the relationship can become more empowered, less disempowered? So that put her in the position to either be negative, right, or positive. So she said, yes, I think she was appeasing the conversation at the moment. So I said, when is the last time you said thank you to your husband? It's this simple. You want to talk about Grant? She began even crying more. And she said, oh my God, I can't remember the last time I said thank you. I said, so let's put this to the test. And for the next 7 days before we meet again, I want you to find different ways to show gratitude and appreciation, because you don't want to say thank you at every moment because it's going to feel very awkward because they're not in a good place. But in your mind, I want you to think thank you. I want you to feel it. I want you to sense it. And I want you to really believe that you have the potential to shift what is going on. So this is where the suspend the doubt comes into my coaching, but put it all aside. Go into the next 7 days as if thank you was the key to shifting it all. Do you know that when she start and it could have been emptying the dishwasher, taking out the garbage, walking the dog, fielding a call from one of their sons who's going through some things. Do you know that every time he made a move that bothered her, irritated her, she tried to, make it the reasoning why. And she took that out and all she said was, "Thank you. I appreciate you stepping in. Oh, I really, appreciate you helping that out. I want to thank you for working so hard, put our boys through college." All of these things that a lot of us take for granted. So much has shifted between the two of them because he needed to know I matter. I matter. Not because I'm supposed to matter, because I absolutely do matter. And she forgot that he mattered. And so something as simple as that, and this isn't to say, because obviously when we're having these conversations, they're in a gray area. Everyone has a different dynamic. But yes, the power of a small shift can have a big impact. This is something that happened. I've been coaching her for almost a year now, but this happened a while ago. Everything has shifted. They're happier, they're calmer, they resolve challenges differently. I started coaching him too, which helped because a lot of men don't want to think about their thoughts and they just kind of do, and that's good enough. So I think if everyone took away right at the moment that sometimes the smallest act of, and fill that in, can absolutely shift. And if you also remember or remind yourself that energy is in everything, and it really is. And then we can go into quantum studies for that. But trust me, energy is in everything. Which energy am I? And what am I bringing into each interaction? And how do I want to experience this? And how would I like the other person to feel when our interaction has ended? And if you go in with that 3-second thought process, you start becoming more involved in the collective exchange of each experience and less in the self-serving purpose of each interaction.
That's really beautiful. It's like a personification of gratitude lists. And I really love that application, especially in like a romantic relationship or a family dynamic. Any law relationship that has stood the distance, right? We do kind of have a tendency to get very comfortable, very complacent, and almost neglect the things that we probably once appreciated about a person. And so it's like you're taking the everyday suggestion of a gratitude list and just personifying it towards the person that you're trying to have a better relationship with. And yeah, energy really is everything. So I love that that's like a good practical application for it to, I guess, not even necessarily fix a relationship, but just better any kind of dynamic. I mean, everyone wants to feel appreciated. Nobody wants to feel overlooked or taken for granted. And yeah, I really like that idea of just being like, even if you don't necessarily say thank you at every turn, if it's pretty normal between you and your husband, maybe that he's always the one unloading the dishwasher, but just even noticing it, even recognizing it, and having the thought, thank you, is going to make you inherently feel better.
And again, it when we're talking about, I feel, something deep and profound as empowerment and all of what that, entails, it really does come down to the simplest of things for each one of us. The human condition is what it is. We create all of the different layers and levels, right? The trauma, the drama, the chaos, the expectations, the judgments. But if you just look at it at its baseline, it's really quite beautiful. And all we want is to be recognized within that structure. And as you said, we forget very easily because there's just so much coming at us. And again, our expectations from movies, from art, from writing, You should be this way. I should be experiencing this way. I remember one time when my daughter was very young, um, there's a very wealthy community near us, and one of her friends' fathers took a group of girls on a jet for like her sweet 16. And my daughter came home and she's like, "Well, where are we going? And what kind of jet are we flying in?" And I'll never forget that. And it's those outside influences that begin to almost erode the natural, again, baseline of what's really beautiful between one another, and most importantly, ourselves. And this is something I really coach on and I write about. That relationship with self concept is so imperative, so that when we do go out into these interactions, we're very clear and very confident of why we are spending our time in that specific environment. And we can bring our highest and best self in. It's not to get something, it's to gain something for the other person.
I feel like the people that listen to this show are pretty smart and they have a baseline of metacognition that's operating always. They're always thinking about their thoughts. And I think normally the connotation is that it's stressful or a trauma response to be a person
Mhm.
who is in metacognition all the time because you're like, ugh, I'm tired. For me personally, sometimes I wish I could take my brain out, put it in a pickle jar, and come back in a couple days. I'm like, I'm tired of thinking about thinking. But where in this practice does the metacognition actually serve us positively? How can we look at it as an empowering ability versus like a boogeyman in the closet?
Mm. You can be exhausted either way. Why not choose the way that actually empowers you? Exhaustion, stress, thinking about thinking, that thought process right there already feels kind of like it's draining the charge. If you think I'm in the power seat of choice at every moment, I get to choose how I am thinking about this particular environment. That's super cool to really know that I can empower all of my moments through all my days. Now, I do agree with you. This isn't about thinking about it in the way that our mindset is going to. This isn't sitting here thinking about what am I saying? Why am I saying it? Who made me think this way? It's not about that. This is just about tuning into that natural brilliance that resides in us, that it's not that we have to think about it. It's that when we tune in to the higher plane of awareness, to the energy within our thinking, it becomes second nature. So if it's a bit arduous in the beginning, be patient. Pretty soon you will automatically start waking up thinking, I'm neutral. I'm waking up neutral. And if anything kind of, like the stub my toe theory, I'm good. I got it. And just move through. I'm saying this too from a true, authentic place. I was very average in my thinking because I'm an average person. I chose to create a new mindset. I chose to look at life through the lens of the particular methodology that we use at the Science of Empowerment, but just how to design a life that feels empowering opposed to everything that came at us. I mean, I went through bullying when I was in school. Even though I was captain of the cheerleading team, I had what everyone thought on the outside was like this really kind of cherry life. There were very mean people, and I remember back then having to think, I can go into school, right? Because your parents are like, you got to go. You got to deal with this. You got to figure this out. How do I show up and walk in that door owning something that almost shields me from it? And so I started thinking about it. And so it's something that I've lived through. I'm not just saying I wrote a book and think positively. You have coded in your DNA what is needed to live an exceptional life. Do not settle for thoughts, energy that drains that knowing.
What are the sorts of practical tools that people can reach for? Would you suggest meditation or journaling or therapy? What is an easy way to start to actually clock the negative thoughts, the ones that are having a bad impact, and also clock and appreciate when we're having good moments of this, when we're making that shift? How do you actually tangibly track that?
So again, I think this is such an individualized choosing. People love to meditate, go for walks, cook, listen to music, journal. Many of my clients have tried many things, so therapies of all different genres. Coaching is very different. You know, I'm an empowerment designer. It's a very unique, for me, niche of working with clients that are not only ready, but willing to do the work to really put it all down and get excited about what they can create. So I think try everything that feels right for you in the moment. So, you know, I've had lots of clients that journaled and then it just became like blah, blah, blah to them. They needed more reflective, right, kind of energy back. Why am I thinking this way? How can I change this? And different therapies can help you get there. Again, that's, I think, what life coaching and empowerment design is different. This is really, I'm going to use this word loosely, but having a real high energy cheerleader in your corner to keep you motivated because that's how you should be living and that's how you should be feeling. I think different skills and tools, but they have to feel, again, I'm using this word a lot, but they have to feel obtainable. You have to, so if I tell you, for me, I live within the formula, that J3 equals E formula. It's very simple. It's 5 principles. That's it. When I am faced with a challenge, I'm getting a bit burnt out, there's a burden, whatever that word may be, a limitation, a block, a pattern, I immediately go into what am I aware of? What am I willing to do? What's my accountability in this particular experience? Critical thinking, this is the fourth principle. This is such a powerhouse of a skill to acquire. Critical thinking. This is where we have really rational and clear minded thoughts. So we suspend the emotionality. Doesn't mean we ignore, it doesn't mean we push under the rug, it doesn't mean we deny the realities of something that's bothering us, but we just suspend it for a moment and we start to think as if we've already arrived to that desired outcome. This immediately puts us into the fifth principle, which is energy. We begin to neutralize the pattern of thought, behavior, and outcome through critical thinking. Now, when we're in this neutral state, we can start to use something we read in a book, something we heard on a podcast, something a coach said to us to move into a more positive outcome. So for me, the formula is something not only did my brother, who's a former USA Olympic gymnastics coach, create and use to create gold medal champions. It's something that I was so interested in. What about regular people like me, wife, a mom, a friend, a daughter? What, how can I take this idea of this formula and so allow it to be a supportive tool, a reflective mechanism, a skill that I can pull on at any time. You can be in traffic, you could be waiting to pick up your food, you can be teaching a class. I have I have police officers and religious leaders. I have every style reading this book. You can apply this in any moment. What am I aware of? I'm pissed, I'm sad, I'm burnt out, I'm lonely, I'm frustrated. Okay. What are you willing to do? Meditate, go for a walk, eat something good, call a friend, read a book, listen to a podcast, whatever it may be. Go work in the garden, walk the dog. Accountability. Yep, I'm taking accountability. I want to shift that pattern. Critical thinking. I'm not thinking, woe is me. It's your fault. I'm not blaming, I'm not judging, I'm not putting it outside of myself. I'm commanding the energy. I've got what it takes to work through this. Energy. I just neutralize it again. So, as the writer of the formula, this is all I apply to my life. Everyone who knows me, everybody applies it because it really works. So, I think again, we all know the baseline of meditation, journaling, all of that, and they're all beautiful, tools to bring into our life. But there's something unique when you have a methodology, this formula that really begins to bridge the science of thought energy for me with the artistry of personal development. And it's in that movement over the bridge that you start to really design an empowered life and you stop questioning the whys and you start to figure out the hows.
What is the formula? Because we kind of just, you mentioned it, you said what it was, but what does that mean?
Yeah, so the J3 equals E, that stands for Jekyll, Jekyl. It's an acronym. The 3 is negative, positive, neutral energy. And when you apply the 5 Jekyll principles with the choice of energy, you now create an empowered life. So J, those are the awareness, willingness, accountability, critical thinking, energy. So when you apply the Jekyll principles, you position yourself into that power seat of choice. Who wants to choose negativity? But it comes up on us pretty fast. Now, again, anyone listening, think of a present challenge you have and run through. What am I aware of around this challenge? What am I willing to do? What's my accountability in the repeat, the pattern of this behavior or habit or story? Critical thinking. Let me take all that emotionality, all that reactive energy out. Energy, I've just neutralized like in seconds. That doesn't mean that you apply the formula and life's issues dissolve, though it can. It can. It means that you're beginning to really get good at a skill set, at a formula that at any given moment when a challenge is busting your butt, you can apply it and you can begin to recalibrate it. And you start to understand, God, I used to so easily fall into the thought process of why it is the way it is. I can change all of that. I can. And when I change, I shift, I become empowered. It begins to have positive effect on everything around you.
Where does resilience come into all this?
Mm. I think the resilience comes in probably for me between the willingness and the accountability. It's almost like a bridge between there. We're not always resilient on the upfront, but if we're willing to become a better version of what we once were, i.e., wrapped in that pattern of thinking and being, now we begin to really magnify accountability. And self accountability for me and self concept are big. You, it, it empowers you. You're accountable for how you think and how you feel. So I think in order to create a resilient life, you must be become an accountable human. You must be able to say to yourself, I held on to that. I had some creational aspect in that. I also can shift the way I perceive it. I can ignite new perspective, whatever the vernacular is that feels right for the listener. But I think resilience is one of those unique things that are coded in the DNA. I believe it really got buried, if not completely removed from our consciousness for many different reasons. Um, and again, most of us have gone through things in our childhood or through our teenage years that weren't always positive and happy. Okay, we all understand that. Now what? It's a now what? You can hold on to it or become resilient and release it. And releasing it again, that's through many different, experiences. meditation, reading, coaching, listening to podcast, um, taking better care of our mind, body, and consciousness, whatever that means to each individual. So resilience is yours. Just tune into it.
How do you know when you're having a thought pattern, which bucket you would put it in as far as is this positive energy, negative energy, or neutral? How do you determine that?
Again, I think, as you said, your listeners are very smart. We all know when we aren't feeling our best. We all know when something has kind of knocked us off our course. We all know what unhappiness feels like. That's negative. Now, all negative thoughts, feelings, emotions, and experiences aren't a bad thing. They're not something that's wrong. For me, they are there. I call them, markers. It's a mechanism to let you know it's time for the next tier, the next level, the next step in your growth. That's all it is. I never take anything negative as a negative. I actually take it as an opportunity to look at something that's been the same for so long that I've gotten so used to feeling this way about it, but I know that I'm not supposed to feel that way. I'm supposed to feel better or stronger, more resilient, a bit happier. And that's where the formula again comes in, because we bring awareness around to, why am I feeling negative? And what is it that I've been unwilling to do about that negative feeling? And if I take accountability on that feeling, it already begins to shift. If I take a lot of that, again, that emotionality, we're also charged up with our emotions, and rightfully so. If we've been hurt, if we've been abused, if we've gone through something very tragic and life altering, our brain has wired into a system that is always on the defense. Whether I don't believe in victimhood per se, but it is, we're defensive. I was cheated on, I was lied to, someone stole from me, whatever it may have been. My father was an alcoholic, my mother abandoned me. We all know the human stories. Now, when we are able to just take a pause, kind of move into that neutral space, we can look at the negativity. I'm going to interrupt myself and share something that I just listened to on a podcast that I thought was amazing. There was Steve Bartlett was interviewing one of the foremost humans in the world of like cybersecurity, but big government, uh, leaders of world state leadership. His mother was a heroin addict, shot his stepfather. They had 9 bullet holes in his living room. She killed herself when he was 16. And he grew to become one of the most compassionate, brilliant, purposeful contributors in the human experience.
Are you talking about Gavin DeBecker?
Say that again.
Gavin DeBecker?
Was he the gentleman that was on? I don't know. Steve Bartlett is the Diary of a CEO, his podcast. I don't have the name of the gentleman because I just caught this part, but I have it marked to listen
The
to.
background just sounds familiar. I always recommend his book Gift of Fear
Oh,
because it's he was a security guy.
yes,
Yeah.
that is him.
Okay.
And my point is, some asked, how? How? Think about that. You saw your mother shoot someone. You lose your mother when you're 16. All of this stuff. He could not talk to his mother because she had passed. But in his dream, she came to him one day or one night in a dream, and he asked, why did you do these things? And in the dream state, the answer was to prepare you for the life ahead. That has stuck with me for the last several days since I've heard this. I am a believer that every adversity, every challenge that we have come up against, even when we were naive and well underdeveloped to handle it, was set into the consciousness, the spirit, the soul, however you want to look at it, the psyche, the mindset, so that we can become more than what we would have settled for if not for that adversity. This is what I'm always telling my readership or my clients. Do not settle for less than you can become. There is something great and powerful and important in every human being, no matter what the environment. And I really do believe that it is important to know that. And that story, I think, is such a unique way of expressing we've all been through some pretty crappy stuff, some of us a lot more than others. And yet we have these examples of resilience, of resolve, of empowering our life, and then the legacy and the children too that we create in the world. So hopefully that helped a little bit to the listeners. But please don't ever think you're alone and you're on your own, and someone is just saying again, oh, everything, just think one way and everything should be perfect. No, but we all have the opportunity now to listen, to read, to take in information, knowledge, and apply it. And through that application, this is how we really create a big shift, an important shift, and growth in our own life.
Once we establish, we talked about categorizing this thought as negative. I'm an embodied person, so I can sense when it's throwing me off my game. What is the path to not just clocking it, but releasing it?
Yeah, yeah, right. Thank you for bringing us back there because that just stirred up that story. Again, I'm going to go back to how am I feeling? How am I thinking? That's how you clock it. That's how you begin to create your own analytics, right? Measure your own data. I've awakened 4 days in a row feeling different than I have for the last 3 years. Why? I'm reading The Science of Empowerment. I'm listening to this amazing podcast. I've started meditating. I stopped drinking soda and eating bonbons every night. I don't know, whatever it is. I'm shifting my behavior. I'm using the power of my thoughts to begin to create a new way of becoming, a new story, a new belief, new behaviors, new habits. I feel good. I like what I'm starting to experience. That's how you measure if you are negative, neutral, or positive. And there's a difference between neutral and indifference, right? Indifference, we lose our compassion and our empathy. Neutrality, for me, is a superpower. It positions you to choose all things positive, all thoughts, all behaviors, all experiences. And again, anyone can practice this when they're done listening to the podcast. Find a present challenge, move through the formula, read the book, listen to it, get coached, do whatever you have to. Shift the way you've always done it and watch what happens. And don't ever go back because you've already been there. And why stay somewhere where you've always been? Unless it's absolutely beautiful and lovely and it brings you happiness and all of that, of course. But if there's any negativity, position yourself into the power seat, choose neutral, and acquire the skills, the tools, the knowledge, the information. It's all available to you, and start to create an empowered life. No excuses. I write about that in the book. There's a big bubble, a big quote that I have readership that puts it all over, and they send me little pictures. Excuses are unnecessary. They don't do anything but keep you stuck.
How do you reconcile that with times when we're simply just going through it? Let's say, like the death of a loved one or the loss of a job, when the negativity is going to seep in, but you also, from a therapeutic standpoint, have to process it. You can't just be like, la da da, everything's fine and great. Like, where does the reconciliation come in?
So I took care of my father for a year and then in hospice, and he passed away. And so I'm coming out of this. I went through the formula. I wrote every day, what am I aware of? Sometimes the burden and the sadness and the loss was overwhelming. So today I'm aware I am overwhelmed. What am I willing to do? Nurture myself, shut the world down, Hot showers, warm tea, good movie, be around a friend, lay in bed and cry, whatever it may be. Now I'm accountable for honoring and giving myself grace in this particular situation. Critical thinking, yeah, I can be rational about this. Life ends, right? How did I neutralize it? My dad was 84. I had time with him where my mom lost her mom when she was 10 years old. So I had gratitude for that. The gratitude helped neutralize the sadness. Didn't take it away, but it neutralized it because I started to collect pictures. And when I would go visit him and we would just reminisce, and we both love cars. And when he started to go off into the deeper end of hospice experience, we would pretend we were driving cars and shifting gears. And it was just the way his brain was going. There's always a way to empower the situation. And that doesn't mean, like you said, empower in a la-di-da way. It just means opposite of disempowering the experience. And so I think hopefully that gives people an authentic response to that. And a job loss, things of that nature, which still matter, our livelihood, paying our rent, that's scary. I know I've been there. Many of us have been there. Again, all right, this sucks. What am I going to do? And I'll do what needs to be done to keep the base life moving. And then I'll get my fire back. Then I'll figure it out. But right now, I guess I have to, and then fill in the blank, I have to go flip burgers, wait on tables, join the landscaping crew, shovel the snow, whatever it is. I will do what is necessary because I am an empowered individual, and life does not direct me in either way. I have the directive over how I am going to experience it.
I like that because it still holds space for the grief and allows people to do what they need to do to process it, to make sure it's not suppressed and
Yeah.
then sneaking up on us, but
No.
still going through the motions of making sure it's the empowerment of it. Like, oh, I'm not trying to shift to this into a positive thing. It's not a good thing, but you're still holding space for the grief while honoring that you have some autonomy in it as well.
And that's the beauty of neutrality. You can view both sides for the right course of action. I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm frustrated. However, I also know I have what it takes to eventually cross that bridge and get to the other side. And for today, and maybe many days to come, I'm just going to allow myself to feel what I need to, because that is important, as we know, right? The body keeps the score. And I'm studying all on fascia now, and that's all the webbing system in our body. And the body holds. And so it is important to always honor a process, and that's an individual, I think, selection.
Where does a spiritual belief or a higher power come into all of this? Do you need it? Is it a hindrance? Tell me about that relationship.
Again, that's really an individual's choosing. I believe in the power of the universe. Um, there are I personally know of people who believe in a God, one and only. I know people who believe in many different gods over the course of different civilizations. I do believe that there is an omnipresence. And if you choose to look at it in the context of religion, faith, or again, self concept, as long as it's not based out of narcissism, it's all good. I remember once I had a friend, she was very young and went through a lot, and she was addicted to cocaine, and we had in and out of rehab. And I remember, she's like, what do I have faith in? I said, have faith in a butterfly, a tree, a blade of grass, something that truly exists, and start from there. It changed her life. I didn't know back then. We were young, in our late teens when she was going through this. I had never, I didn't go down that path, of course, with her, but I really cared about her. And I remember saying that those were the three things I said. I had read the book by Leo Buscaglia, Love. He talks about that, a blade of grass, just seeing the beauty in it. So I think universal powers are all around us. How and what we gravitate towards, that's a unique journey. So for me, I would be open to everything. I study, all the realms of quantum possibility. I think there's endless universes, and I just think there's endless possibilities of what can exist. I mean, theology and religion, I mean, we could have incredible conversations on all this because there's so many wonderful facets of proof and deniability. But for me, I'll use an example. If someone says, well, how would you know that God exists? How do you even know Jesus was real? It would be, how do you know God doesn't exist? And how do you know Jesus isn't real? So why don't we just neutralize, what if there is a God? What if Jesus does exist? And man came in and convoluted a lot of maybe the stories and the reasoning of their existence. But what happens if, again, the baseline, they exist? Now what? Now, how would you go about your day? And if you could be more like, and then follow that, how would you be to your fellow man? So I think there's very unique ways to posit that question, but I'm a spiritual being. I went to Sunday school. My stepfather was an old Irish Catholic man. We went to mass. We've had religion, but both my brother and I, my parents always said, find your own energy. I love the Buddhist, I love it all. Dr. Wayne Dyer, maybe for some of the young listeners may not know, but his teachings and studies are beautiful. Um, they're just very open, but he has a foundation. So I think it's important to have faith in something. I think it's important to believe in something, but I ultimately think the faith and the belief must be within yourself and not outside of yourself. And that's a personal thought of mine. If I always am placing my ability to deal with the human experience of something that is maybe no longer human, it's not going to quite line up with my particular time frame. But I support any and all as long as it is not harmful to another human.
I love that. Such a great way of saying it. Any final thoughts for someone who's like, I'm going to start taking this on. I want to have a better outcome tomorrow based on my energy?
Yeah. Say hello to that part of yourself because it's been waiting for you. It's that simple. And, just do not doubt. You've got everything that you need to create a happy life. And at every intersection, ask yourself, negative, positive, or neutral. And if you are in a negative environment, you can absolutely neutralize it. And then when you're ready, create a positive experience from that.
Incredible. Well, if Laura, if people want to learn more about what you're doing, where should they go?
Certainly. Please visit the website, of course, www.thescienceofempowerment.com. There is a copious amount of information and knowledge to help you move through any present challenge that you have. It's all there, complimentary.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Very, very a very unique experience with the questions, so well thought out. As you know, I've done well over 150 interviews, and I so appreciate when someone is very smart about the subject that they're interviewing on.
Oh, thank you so much.
It makes it fun. So thank you.
I appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye.
If you know somebody that would enjoy this episode, feel free to share it with them. And thank you for listening to Galina Ravina Podcastina, the show where I try to be the person my dog thinks I am. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. See you on the next one.